Hello, and welcome back to another exciting podcast with the Conduktor team. Today, I'm thrilled on a couple of different levels. One, I get the opportunity to share the stage with two good friends, co-founder, CTO, Stefan, and our head of product management, who's the big brains behind everything we're doing here at Conduktor, Mr. James White. And today, I think we have a very exciting topic, something that I don't think you can go very far these days without hearing the way people are using AI, the way AI is changing, the way kids write papers, the way people vibe code, and obviously the way we interact with our day-to-day lives and responsibilities, whatever they may be. So today, we're going to talk about the way people are leveraging real-time streaming data, operational data, to power whether it's their GenAI initiatives, their agentic AI initiatives, but just really rethinking the way that they can bring AI use cases to life with greater controls, greater accuracy, and greater outcomes and inputs and value. So to frame us up, let me begin. We'll jump into some introductions. We'll frame up what we're going to do today, and then I'll have the privilege of questioning these two brilliant minds on some of the key topics that we're here to talk about. So if we move on to the next slide. So again, very high level, just to make sure we set the stage of who we are and who you're listening to today. So I have the privilege of helping lead our go-to-market teams here at Conduktor. I'm the Senior Vice President. With me, as I've said, I have two fine young gentlemen who are going to help us lead through most of this conversation. Stefan and James, would you like to briefly introduce yourselves?
Go ahead, James. Yeah, great to be here. Thank you for the warm introduction, Quentin. But I'm James, Product Director at Conduktor. So I've been working on Conduktor for around 3.5 years now. Over to you, Stefan.
Yeah, so CTO, co-founder, Stefan. I've been working at Conduktor for a bit more than 3.5 years. I do AI every day since, the big ChatGPT boom back then. Everybody should use AI these days. It's like mandatory. And as we'll see, streaming is like a foundation, I really believe, to everything AI tomorrow. Not just talking about GenAI, we will talk about agentic AI as well, but it's really the combination of both technologies which is going to actually expand how we use it and how we build everything in this world. So this is very, very exciting.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. So let the games begin. First, let's frame it up a little bit. I think, again, to start the conversation, we're seeing, whether it's, again, generative AI, whether it's repaving or laying of foundation models from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, or now quickly emerging, thinking about the way AI will help you code, the way AI will help you solve problems, and the way agents will start to really accelerate time to value, time to insights, from whether it's, again, outside in use cases or inside out use cases. But one of the key, I think, headwinds, or one of the key opportunities for us to help address and talk about today, is the paramount change in how important real-time flowing data is, whether it's for lakehouse initiatives and analytic initiatives, or the more advanced AI initiatives. The flow updated refreshing of data, quality trusted data, and the concepts of, again, more accurate, more controllable data is paramount. And that's whether it's to build out smarter models, create greater insights, mitigate hallucination and accuracy issues, but also keep control of your costs. Nothing can happen without brilliant people behind the keyboard still, and also fresh flowing data that is better governed, better controlled, and better applied into these models. So, we talk about very often, as AI scales, it can only go as fast as the people and the data that's feeding it. And, like everything else in this world, garbage in or wild west of what goes in, garbage out, and uncontrollable, less valuable insights will be derived. So we continue to move on. I want to kind of set the stage beyond obviously where AI is driving a demand, but then what are some of the things I think that we can do about it? So move on for next slide. What we continue to hear from customers that we get to talk to, whether it's at events, whether it's obviously in our day-to-day lives, or it's some of the biggest companies and partners on the planet, is that data streaming is going to be a key enabler for AI adoption and AI value to thrive. We talked a little bit about this, but I think some of the key things we've heard from people around how do we bring in different types of data sets into models? How do we make sure that things are up to date and quality standards are addressed earlier, shift left, right, in the AI world, but also keeping track in compliance and governance over what is being fed into things as new requirements come up, as new capabilities emerge, and as new services and new information becomes available. And now I think more than ever that the broadening types of data sets, whether it's real-time, batch-based, nano relay, the types of data, the speed of that data, and the variability of that data is exploding. And as fast as we want to go, we can only go as fast with AI as the controls we have in place for what's being fed into these systems. So moving on, so framed up a little bit around, I think, the opportunity, some of the, I think, incredible excitement about it, but then what's really blocking AI adoption? What are some of the ways and some of the challenges around some of the risks at place? So we hear this often, right, that there's three key challenges that exist today. Security risks, whether that's data protection, data anonymization, making sure that audit trails are in place. Compliance risks, making sure that teams are able to break out of the silos, sharing data, but not losing governance and compliance controls of what they're doing with the data. And then hallucinations, accuracy challenges, and the value and insights that are coming out of these models to create better predictions and to help better reason between machines and people. So these are some of the opportunities. These are some of the risks. Let me now get into the prodding and some of the questioning, with my two key experts here. So let me first frame up, and James, I think we can keep moving forward. But if we framed up the situation, we framed up the challenge, let's talk about, what is now, I think, the opportunity, right? So every executive wants to go faster. I believe everybody is bought into what they're trying to do with AI, but they're hitting some walls. They're hitting, whether it's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, whether it's cost challenges, compliance, hallucination risks. I think, there's no board meeting that goes on these days without people asking, where are we with our AI initiatives? Where are we with bringing some of these use cases we've talked about to market? But there's still a lot of concerns and there's a lot of manual intervention required to do that. So let me first start with a simple question. And Stefan, maybe I'll begin with you. We're clearly seeing a surge in interest around real-time data for AI, but what's changed? Why is that so important? And can you frame up a little bit, what are some of the challenges associated, right? It sounds easy, but why is it so hard to bring in real-time data into AI systems and platforms?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I will start by framing actually, AI, where it came from. Remember ChatGPT back then? We used GenAI. We were just talking about GenAI. So, hey, I want to generate a nice piece of content, of text based on some crazy idea. This was not yet, needed even streaming or Kafka or streaming was not necessary back then. But then came a RAG, RAG to aggregate basically various sources of data, to get contextual data, fresh data, to actually build something, generate something that was way more meaningful. And this was the beginning of, okay, no, you need actually to send to augment basically your prompt with better data, so better quality, with data that you can actually use in your enterprise, so which is secured. Do I have access to this data? Am I supposed to have access? And then lately came up agentic AI. So agentic AI is not just about generating some piece of text. It's about taking decisions. It's about having an impact in my enterprise. It's probably about replacing some workflow, but being smart and taking decisions. So it's very far from just generating some things. It's about taking decisions. And the goal of this, if you take a decision, if you take a bad decision, especially at the machine speed, which is agentic AI, you can go into deep troubles. Meaning, what you have before, how do you take a decision based on what? It's highly, highly critical today, and it keeps getting there with MCP, with agent to agent from Google. IBM has also something, I even forgot the name. It's going so fast, but it means that you really have to control your data to make it accessible for agentic AI and RAG to make sense. But you really have to know exactly what is happening. You have to be able to explain why AI took this decision, why AI generated something. So this is something called explainable AI. And it means that you need so much control because you give more freedom to how your data is being used. But it means that it's not a human anymore. It's something which is like a machine. So machines need to be backed by some controls that us humans should put in place beforehand to be sure that the data can spread and be utilized efficiently.
Yeah.
So I think this is the main difference.
And smart as always, my friend. I'll give you 3 points for that 1 out of 5. It was really well done. So James, what would you build on that? Maybe we double click into agentic AI. How do you think about some of the use cases that require streaming data? What are you hearing from customers around the opportunity and some of the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think a good place to start would be why any enterprise organization needs agentic, right? And agentic agents, they're there to kind of perceive and reason and act based on data, right? And these are data literate organizations with varying levels of maturity, but perhaps unlike traditional automation, your AI agents need to update dynamically, right? Or they need to adapt to their surroundings and their context. They want to make decisions based on those evolving inputs. They're not just there to kind of execute workflows, right? Like typical ETL type pipelines, this is fundamentally different. And to drive that, you need real-time inputs, right? You need that real-time context. And where does that typically come from? It comes from your operational data, right? And your operational data typically is there as streaming, and those inputs fuel specific use cases like real-time fraud detection. If we think about finance and banking, in the retail space, we often talk about this hyper-personalized recommendations and customer experience. We're all familiar with Uber and the transportation logistics use cases around kind of route optimization, predictive maintenance in kind of manufacturing industry as well. So all of those models, all of those use cases, they need that fresh real-time context, and ultimately that will improve the quality of service that you're providing to your consumers.
So I think about supply chain, right? Reverse supply chain and forward supply chain. Just-in-time operations has been around for decades, but the brand promise and the ability to actually do that at scale, it required tons of people. Some companies counting inventory by hand, right? Going through what was in a warehouse versus what was en route to places, what was coming back to warehouses. There was a lot of trust and a lot of human intervention in that, right? So I think even just the simple concepts of how do we do inventory management, willingness to pay, what's coming back that could be resold versus what's coming back that needs to be broken down and put into assembly of parts. This starts to become really interesting, I think, for manufacturers, consumer packaged good companies, but also the logistics side of it, right? The broader supply chain.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's flip it a bit. So that's the exciting part. Let's talk about some of the scary parts, right? Let's talk about some of the risks. And there's certainly a lot. There's security risks. There's, I think you won't go far these days without hearing people talk about data leaking into models, proprietary information, source code, PII going into models, prompts, right? Maybe not the best chunking strategies or skills out there exist these days. Compliance, right? Some of the auditability of the pipelines themselves, what's going in and out. Is it supposed to be? Is it not supposed to be? And then accuracy, right? Hallucinations. We always joke. Some models seem to be like my children when they've had a little too much Coca-Cola. You ask them anything, the answer is, of course, Dad, 9,000 words. I understood none of it. But basically, the unvalidated, duplicated data triggering wrong predictions, right? I don't think there's many times ChatGPT tells me no to something, right, as an example. So let's frame up the risks. So I'll come back to you, James. What have you heard, right? We're spending a lot of time together in the field. We were just out at an event a couple of weeks ago. What are some of the top risks you've heard or seen as it relates to AI pipelines that are relying on batch data only for inference, as an example?
Yeah, I mean, if we take the kind of batch, and we can break down batch by even like micro batch, right? Because some people may be doing things, in a micro batch way, which is not quite real time, but still they might think that's good enough. But when we talk about some of those use cases, for example, risk mitigation, if we're talking about insurance and things like that, the opportunity cost of it not being real time is potentially damaging, your bottom line, or its risks going undetected longer, right? So although in that case you may think, okay, well, why do I need this? It's that opportunity cost of, how much more you could gain from utilizing real time data in the inference perspective. In terms of like other top risks I've seen, I mean, a lot of it will come back to quality, and I know we'll touch upon this, so I'll only briefly comment on it now. But you mentioned it yourself already: garbage in, garbage out. That model's only as good as the data that's feeding it. And typically, the approach towards quality happens kind of at the batch, at the SQL layer, running periodically on data that's already in your lake or already in your warehouse. The reality is that's too late, right? That's polluting your data stores. To work backwards from there to fix that is a huge operational cost and overhead, right? You're talking about, fixing not potentially one layer, but 1, 2, 3 layers if you're using a medallion architecture or things like that, right? Those problems persist the further down the stack you get. So I think a lot of it comes back to quality when we're talking about AI models in production, and a lot of that falls back onto kind of your operational model and how you address that. So that's something that's being discussed a lot at the moment at conferences.
Yeah, well said. It's the instead of compounded interest, compounded impact, right? It's that law of numbers. It's a multiplication effect, right? As you go down the stack or up the stack, it gets worse, and there's a broader impact, and there's much more cost exposure, right? Not just the risk side. Well said. So Steph, let me flip it to you. Let's build on this a bit. So what's the out? So we talked a little about the risk side, but what happens if you don't have data quality, if freshness is ignored, specifically within agentic AI systems? What starts to happen?
Yeah, and first, I would challenge this garbage in, garbage out, because I think with agentic it's more garbage in, disaster out. Because if you let something take a decision, it's not garbage; it's a freaking disaster for your enterprise. Because maybe you are in healthcare and you send a the diagnostic to someone, or a bad treatment, so it can have like massive real life impact. So it's more a disaster than a garbage. I think agentic AI is just going to highlight even more these challenges and the issues which are going to occur, because it's going to impact real life. Agentic is not about just content; it's about real life things that we want to happen in autonomy. So meaning, if you do something, if your quality is bad and it causes a side effect on someone in real life, it's really a disaster to me. So I would love to, maybe before deep diving more, but to define quality. I think we all talk about quality. Everybody in this world think in data think, quality is about having the right format in my field. That's it. It's like a regular expression. It's like, it has to be 1, 2, or 3, or false or true. Quality is not at all just this kind of things. It's not just about statistics. It's not about the field format. Quality is way bigger than this. It's about the metadata as well. You may know, if everybody reads about AI, AI is as good as the data and the metadata coming with the data. If I give you a piece of text today, how do you know it's still relevant? How do you know it's fresh? You don't know. I need to provide you the last update of this piece of text, for instance. This way, you can actually use it.
Yep.
If I was sick 10 years ago, you should not use this thing 10 years ago because I'm sick today. Maybe it has absolutely nothing to do. So I think the quality aspect, we are really underestimating what is quality, because it's a very generic word,
Yep.
but it's all the trust. You said it earlier. How do I trust this? And how agentic AI will trust a piece of data? It's because of metadata. It's not just the data itself. It's everything around. There was a famous example. If I give you a piece of cereal, do you know if you should eat it? Do you know what it is? Do you know if it's expired? No, you don't know. I need to give you the box with all these small details, what's inside, for you to make a decision. Should you eat it or should you not eat it? And quality is actually the whole story around a piece of data. And this is what we need. So when we talk about quality, metadata, it's a lot of things. I wrote a few things, but it's about the schema. When you talk about data, it's about the schema of the data. Does it fit the schema? It's about the ownership, because you need to know who owns these kind of things. Because maybe the data, the customer interpretation of this department, it's not the same as this customer interpretation for the sales department. It's about the timeliness of event. It's about the IDs. You have a lot of IDs to follow basically a context. It's about the security, the confidentiality of this data. How do I know that I can actually read this data? Maybe I'm not allowed. My agent is not allowed to read this data. So it's everything that we forget that we should enforce somehow in any kind of streaming system today, to be sure that our AI is actually has a good quality, let's say, and is not doing some disaster.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's my small brain example. If you pulled data on me from my college days, it would show a much skinnier, more handsome Quentin, right? I'm probably a little more athletic. But I don't know how relevant that would be if you wanted me to run a race or play a sport with you today, right? So context matters, right?
Context. Exactly.
So let's pivot and I want to get some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please, I'd love, obviously, we've already gotten a few, but please come on in. We'll make sure that we address them. So we talked about, obviously, quality is a big word, right? It can mean a lot of things. Steph, let's stay with you for a second. So it sounds like the key shift is context and quality enforcement to the stream itself, right? So what are the most common models organizations are using to enforce data quality? How do you think about that today?
So I would say we start to transition from like reactive, data quality. I do my SQL queries in my data lake, something, and like on this one on the right side, right shift right. And I do a report that I send to someone in the team, in the data engineering or product team. Anyway, it takes time. It's not the way that we do it anywhere today, because it's way too late, especially with AI. It's way too late. So today we have this movement of shift left or balance control, more like what we do. But basically, you want quality in motion. I want to control the data when it is being created, maybe not in the application, maybe in between, in transit. And this is the same for governance. So for all this security aspect, encryption and everything, I want to put that on the left, not just on the right side, because James mentioned the medallion architecture. If you land the data somewhere, then you change it to some silver state, then you change it again to a gold state, meaning you are duplicating data. You have probably multiple sources of truth. There's a data ecosystem today is more about, I don't want to duplicate everything because it's costly, it's not efficient. I have a lack of ownership because it is multiple people owning every state. And so there is this big shift to go actually left, to be sure that if I'm producing data, I'm the only owner and I'm responsible. I'm accountable for the quality of this data. I'm accountable for the security of this data. I know exactly what data do I have. And there is this trend to actually unify how the whole thing, I want access to your data, but I don't want to copy your data somewhere to have access to it. And so it's a massive shift left, not just on quality, but on everything data. And this is exciting because it gives more responsibility and less useless pipes, I would say bluntly, which are just copying data.
Yeah, lovely. James, so I'm going to squeeze you because you're my product manager. You got to simplify these things, right? So what would you say makes Conductor's approach to quality enforcement different from, say, other monitoring tools or other validation tools? And could you give us a little high level, maybe a little tease about how are we enforcing data quality rules? Like, how are we addressing this problem?
Yeah, sure. So I think I kind of touched upon the shift right approach, right? Which is, all of your detection is happening reactively on your kind of analytics side of your business. You're running periodic queries against the data. When you identify that, you can retrospectively look at fix them. But as we said, it's too late. As we talk more about the kind of shift left approach, what's super interesting about that is, you're talking about a single set of data responsible for driving, your application experience, right? Those reactive applications, those real-time decision-making experiences. But you're also talking about maintaining that data, that single source of truth for, other analytical use cases as well, which is super interesting just from the perspective Stefan was talking about not duplicating your data, right? You have the fundamental data you need. It's available in real time. Why not use it across your operational side of your business and the analytical side of your business? The problem, I think, with the fully shift left approach, or at least the point I would make here, is it pushes a lot of responsibility onto the data owners or the data producers, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it may not work for all organizations. It depends how much those data owners, those data producers necessarily take responsibility for that data. And I would say that often to build a culture of high quality trust in the data to fuel these AI use cases, you need to elevate the visibility of that quality inside your organization. And if you put it too far to the left, then that visibility is not elevated for your organization. It's not there for everyone to see. So the way we look at this is you want to be somewhere in between there, where you want to drive the policy enforcement right at that source layer or at the right layer, so that you can govern your data once and use it anywhere, right? That's the fundamental thing that we're trying to achieve. By doing that with federated controls, you're not fully leaning towards those teams, right? You can give that responsibility to a specific set of stewards or a group inside your organization that you trust, and whose sole mission is to drive high quality data for the application that we talked about. So that's where we're kind of slightly different, but through doing that, you're elevating the visibility of quality as a subject inside your organization, but you're still getting that kind of source layer enforcement that you desire to make sure that data is just governed once and then reusable anywhere across the stack.
Like it. Very great answer as always, my friend. All right, we're going to do speed dating or speed question Q&A, right? Get this thing flowing New York style. So first, we already have one out there. Thank you very much for the question. At what stages the data quality should be checked? So at what stages should the data quality be checked? At ingestion, production, when it's being used, or after being utilized? Stefan, what do you think?
Well, I would say at the ingestion time, just before, because if you ingest something, it's going to spread, especially in event streaming thing, it's going to spread and probably break something or misguide decisions. So you have to capture it at the beginning, and if it's bad, you send it to like a DLQ, a dead letter queue, a dead letter topic, to save it why it was bad in the first place, because probably someone has to fix something.
Something has to be fixed, and if it goes into the source, you create a data swamp, or you create all the cost challenges, right, that we talked about.
And a disaster, yes.
Correct. Like you said, that garbage in, disaster out. Well said, my friend. I'm going to get that tattooed on my arm. All right, so for securing data streaming platform, at what level is security applied? Application or network? James, that one's to you.
Could be both, right? At the end of the day, you want to secure your data in transit, but also you might need to secure, the data within, right? So it really depends on kind of the organization, how that data is being utilized. So I wouldn't say there's one single pattern here, but typically you use things like TLS to encrypt the data in transit, but then also that is completely abstract from field level obfuscation of data, right? If that's going to sit somewhere inside some object storage or inside some vendors, providers, platform. So I think both are relevant, and ultimately it comes down to the organization's need.
Absolutely. As I say, start with, always work backwards, right? What is the business need? What are they struggling with? Where's the priority? If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, right? So how do you do it in phases based on just where you are? So I like that. All right, Steph, I'm going to come to you now. What's the most common mistake teams make when they're trying to bring real-time data into their AI initiatives? What are some of the things we've learned from doing it ourselves of stubbing your toe, and those early problems or those early mistakes people make?
Yeah, I'm not even sure if it's when they bring AI, but they think it's just a technical product and it's easy peasy to actually stream data. It is easy to stream data, but the goal of streaming data is to share this data to other teams and inside your organizations. And as soon as you are sharing it, it's going to spread. Everybody knows this. It's going to spread very fast because it's efficient, it's nice. But then you lack every kind of controls that we just said, ownership, quality, and governance things. And this is a big, big mistake that when you want to fix it while the train is actually already running, it's going to be tough challenge to fix. This is what we do, to be honest, with the customers. It's always a difficult stories. It takes time to actually align all these things when the train is already, has departed the station. But it's just one mistake because it's easy to get started. You don't think of, I don't need security, I don't need quality. Oh yeah, you are going to really need it because it's going to scale so fast. You are going to be out of the game. And this would be probably this. And AI is just maximizing actually the need and this challenge of putting that in the first place because of this these automations. You need agentic AI. It's going to take decisions. How can you trust these decisions? You need to trust your data. How do you trust your data? Question mark.
Right. So I was about to, you nailed what I was going to say. So you could have quality, you could have compliance, but if you don't trust what's going in, how do you trust what's coming out? And then and you said this really, really well, like when you find the problems or you find the things earlier, what do you do with that? How do you learn from mistakes, right? It's like when we coach kids, it's not just about teaching them the good things. It's how do you learn from the mistakes, right? And then how do you teach others to avoid that and apply those best practices?
I think the underlying thing as well is how do you know that you did a mistake? How do you know there is a mistake? How you do discover there is something wrong? Yeah. I think this is really why you need to push on the left in a centralized or decentralized way. But this is where the industry is really going today.
Yeah, that's fair. So for you, Mr. White, so I'm going to preview something, a little early teaser, and so don't yell at me, but we have, I think, a really exciting new capability coming to market. Big announcements coming right around the corner for those of you that will be with us at Current. How do you think about the way Conduktor actually works in an AI pipeline? Can you build on where your brain has been noodling and what you're excited to announce here in the coming weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as we kind of alluded to, our approach is to help you kind of govern your data once, right? And then be able to reuse it anywhere. Now, if that application happens to be, agentic or GenAI, then the same principle applies in terms of where that's happening in your overall pipeline. So when that data is first created, like the very origin of that data is where that, you need to build trust in that data, right? So we're very much into enforcement at the streaming layer, but with federated controls that can span across your organization. A very high level, because I know we don't have time, is, the way we think about this is, you're creating that kind of culture, right, through a continuous feedback loop of enforcement. And maybe you don't want to block the data, right, because it's being used and you need to understand it first. But that insight starts to fuel this feedback loop about the overall quality of data inside your organization. And that basically gives you visibility to the point Stefan was making in, can I trust this data for my AI application, right? Or the use case that I want to build for. And if you don't have that visibility, then you don't know what you're dealing with. So it's really there to kind of build that culture inside your organization, enforce it when it needs to stop bad data reaching your agents or reaching your ML applications. So yeah, that's kind of like the high level how we think about it. And like you said, if people would like more information, then of course we will be at Current to share a little bit more about how we're doing this and provide some demos. And if there's anything you want to add, Quentin, from your side.
Yeah, no. So first, just thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. Appreciate the questions. If there's additional things that you'd like to understand, like perhaps you're using a lake house and the way that we could fit into that strategy, maybe you've been trying to do this with other technologies and like to learn about what we could do different, would love to spend some time with you. So you could obviously reach back out and we could set up a demonstration and show you some of these things. As James said, we'll be at Current in London in the coming weeks. We'll also be at Current in October for the second pass of this, with making some, I think, really exciting announcements around lakehouse hydration, agentic AI capabilities, and the way Conduktor can fit into your general build, test, deploy data pipeline strategies. So thank you so much for being with us. We hope to see you in London, and keep doing great things, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.